Welcome to Fuller Speed Ahead. We're right in Cleveland, Ohio today at the Ohio Trucking Association. I'm here with Scott Ray talking about AvatarFleet. A little bit about what AvatarFleet is and what you guys do.
So we exist to solve the driver problem. We define that as I never have enough drivers, I can't keep them, the compliance rules and regulations are always changing, and accidents, injuries are always chipping away at my bottom line.
So what does that mean in terms of, it's a SaaS product that helps fleets manage their driver populations and deal with the issues that come up. Yep. What is the number one reason that people come to you guys?
So as we're talking about it kind of depends on what's going on in their business. So some of them say, I guess who doesn't need more drivers? And so that tends to be the number one reason people find us. And so the recruiting side, or the recruit module of our platform, online application, jobs board, getting them through the funnel, helping you convert leads, turning them into hires. All the bells and whistles to do that.
So they come to you because they're looking for more drivers. Who isn't looking for more drivers?
Correct, that's right.
And so they're out thinking about different strategies on how to recruit.
Right.
And what do you guys do to help them solve the recruiting challenges they have?
Sure, it's an efficiency game. So recruiting is sales, it's a numbers game. The more touches, the more hires. So how can you automate touches? How can you have more touch points with potential leads out there? How can you track what sources are working for you and automate that tracking? Because if I asked you, hey Craig, where'd you hear about us today? And you might say the internet, I've heard that before. You might say Indeed, but really there's a bunch of aggregators out there, and so the driver technically found you on Indeed, but it was a jobs and trucks post.
Right.
So giving you better data so you know where to spend your dollars. And then because it's a DOT application is just cumbersome because the government said you need these pieces and parts. And so creating profiles, saving data, just making that mobile experience super friendly. 90% of drivers apply on a mobile device. That's what we saw last year across both trucking, motor coach, school bus. So these are where people are. You got to make that process simple.
So effectively a CRM for driver inbound is the way to think of it.
You got
Salesforce.com for driver-specific inbound interest. But you go beyond that. Once they're recruited, you get them into the company. What else do you do? What else takes over from their point?
Yeah, so once you hit the approve button, whether it's a contract, independent contractor, or a company driver, the regulations are you're going to need to track roughly about 14 record types per driver. And we've seen some files that are nice and meaty, 70 pages we've seen 250 pages, right? And you just need to, in case you ever get that fun knock at your door from the auditor, you need to be able to produce those record types. And so kind of picture some of our clients, they've got 30, 40 locations. They've got a guy in Chicago who's trying to manage all this. And then before we came on board, he'd have to go to Dallas if he wanted to see what was going on in Dallas. So because he can see it all in one place, he's got all those files electronically built from when you go through the hiring process. And the other piece is there's an alarm system. So a CDL, the MVR, MedCard, all these things expire, you got to keep track of them. And they all expire at different times based on each driver. So just keeping that alarm system organized.
So after they're onboarded, they're driving, you manage the files, the employee files for those drivers so the fleet stays in compliance.
You got it.
Got it.
So they can use the software tool to do it themselves. If they want a little extra love, we can help them, get digital. So we've got a SWAT team send out the scanner, upload them in the system, and then they also can monitor each individual record as it's uploaded, making sure it meets DOT compliance so they can sleep at night if there is an audit.
So what is your sweet spot? Is it the larger enterprise fleets, or is it mid-size, or is this an application that a small trucking company, 20 trucks, could use?
Yeah, our smallest clients below 20 trucks. Our largest client is north of 5,000. And so it doesn't really matter. There's value in all of it. We kind of say our larger clients drive the innovation. They push us, for cool integrations, cool features. Hey, we'd like to have this and that. And we think, well, how? And usually the little guy appreciates that, just doesn't have the bandwidth or capacity, to think about it. So that's kind of how we view it as our large clients push us, and everyone else downstream's benefits.
And you're charging on a per driver basis or on a per enterprise or per fleet basis?
Hey, we create some bands to keep it simple. So kind of the smallest band is one driver to 199, and it goes up there based on your active driver count. So that's how the platform scales up and down depending on size.
Got it. But it's a SaaS product. So it's basically subscription revenue. It's not an on-premise application they have to download to their computers.
Yep, all SaaS, all in the cloud.
Got it. One of the things that gets brought up a lot is the concept of the driver shortage. We've written about it at times. I'm wondering, what is your view? Do you think there is a driver shortage, or do you think it's something else?
So we love ruffling feathers. Usually start a presentation by saying, I don't know if you've been to the grocery store, where there are cantaloupes there. When you went to go fill up your tank, was there fuel? So when you're at this, our stores don't look like Cuba right now.
No, for sure.
So we would say that the freight's moving. Now, is it getting more and more difficult, to find qualified drivers? Absolutely. Average, depending on what you see, kind of average age of the over-the-road driver, is 55. Bureau of Labor Statistics is saying 49 for the professional driver. All right, there's gray hair behind the wheel is the short story. I'm not driving a truck. I'm wearing a suit and tie. It's kind of weird. I'm in the trucking industry, by itself.
Yeah, it's a tough job. I think people oftentimes join the industry, underestimate the difficulty of the job itself that we're driving. And it's frankly not an attractive industry for many people because of the quality of life issues that you have to contend with. And I think the industry has to be honest about that. If you're not honest about the challenges in the industry, then you're actually doing both the new drivers that come in a disservice and the fleets that end up hiring them and have to turn them over. I'm curious, when you see best practices as it pertains to retention of those drivers, both recruiting and retention, what are the fleets that actually stand out for you?
So that's a good topic. That's what I'm going to be presenting on here this afternoon at the OTA conference. And so kind of first thing, we've got a ebook if anyone's interested on 75 retention strategies, and we're organized into 8 business processes. But if I were to give you a couple stories, I would say first it starts with a declaration. And so it really needs to come from the CEO, the president at the top. How was this country formed? Some guys in tights in 1776 said, we declare that we're no longer colonies, we're a country. Now there's a whole Revolutionary War that followed, but the point is it starts with a declaration. And that needs to be important and it needs to be made public. And then so it's not the flavor of the month that there's ongoing report, that people can see the scoreboard. This is what we're doing at each one of our locations. If you're a smaller fleet, this is what we have. Another tools that show that you're serious about it. A great example of a client that I love, they've got a countdown clock. So they make a commitment to all new hires that they're going to get you home every weekend. In the dispatch office, just kind of like a NASA countdown, you can see we got, 10 drivers left before. Nobody leaves that dispatch office until they've got all drivers booked and they know they can get them home for that weekend. And so those are just kind of some visual tools of, we made a declaration, we made a promise, and we don't leave the office, here's our commitment. In that particular case, we don't leave the office until everyone's home.
So it's an onboarded commitment, it's a declaration of these are the values of our company, and through all the decisions we make in the company are really surrounded on these values. And that you see that really differentiates. I think a lot of times companies talk about they're a driver-friendly company to work for, and it seems like every recruiting ad talks about how friendly, but it seems odd to me that if everybody talks about how friendly they are, then they're not really that friendly because the industry itself doesn't have a bunch of friendly companies. And I'm wondering, where do you think how do carriers go beyond just this narrative we're a driver-friendly company to truly doing it? And you mentioned getting drivers home and having that discipline. Is there anything else you see?
Yeah, so what you just touched on is we call it a platitude. And there's a little test we do and say, if you can take Scott's Trucking Company and I can take my logo and put it on top of your ad, it's not an effective ad. You're just saying the same thing as everyone else.
Right.
So, there's stories out there, so before I joined AvatarFleet, in the early stages of it, we used to do recruiting for a company local here in the Cleveland-Akron area. And that fleet remains growing like a weed. And part of it was we called a purple cow. They had a unique message that stood out from the rest. A couple of years, and that was 2015, so it's not as unique now as it was then. But at that time, they were offering a guaranteed paycheck. They said, if you do what we expect, we're going to give you $1,200 a week every week. From an advertising standpoint, you're in the pilot flying J and you just see the same thing, friendly, courteous. We're going to treat you with respect. Oh, you're going to treat me with respect? Wow, I would hope so, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
But here's something that's actually standing out. So whatever it is, borrow Seth Godin's marketing piece, your purple cow.
Yep.
What is this going to make you actually stand out? And I guess if you're a trucking company, your opportunity is, there's a lot of black and white cows out there. Actually standing out isn't that hard. That's your opportunity if you're willing to be creative.
Yeah, it's an industry that I think marketing is often invested in the recruiting side of it. Yeah. The energy with some of the better operators are on the retention side of it. But oftentimes it's they put a lot of energy on the inbound and then put a lot of energy on the outbound. It's no different than if you call up Comcast, I can get a hold of them to set me up an account.
Sure.
And they never talk to me for like a year until I want to cancel. And then
Or
they're all over
raise.
me. And so I think trucking companies oftentimes treat the same process, where a lot of energy in the front end and a lot of energy in the back end, very little energy on that. The idea that this person is subscribing into my fleet and I have to keep them happy.
Another great, so a couple stories that I've seen out there as best practices is, if you do something for someone's kids or their spouse, they're more appreciative than if you do something nice for them. It just
well, it gets reinforced at home, right?
Right.
So.
And so especially, I think it means even more to a driver because they're on the road. And so if someone's on the road, for a week or 2 weeks at a time, the companies that do dry cleaning for the wives have a spouse's book club. Great golden handcuffs is provide scholarships for the kids that vest over time. Are you going to leave somewhere where you've got all this time, money, energy invested in your children? And so that's how you can take a platitude. We're a family-oriented company and provide specifics that said scholarships for your children. So again, there's 1,000 great examples out there, people being unique. And what we're going to be preaching today is recruiting is retention. If you go online and your Indeed profile's got 1 star, your Google profile's got 1 star, your Facebook, you're setting up your recruiter for failure to have to overcome that. If they have the opportunity to actually speak with someone, that's the other thing. They see that a prospect sees that page and bounces because that's how we value, right? That's how you go to a restaurant. That's how you choose a job. And so if you put your time and energy towards, to your point, treat them like you would expect. Here's a wild concept: treat your drivers like humans. And then do a little bit better about marketing it. And that's kind of the beauty of social. You've got the platform out there. You've got the tools available.
Yeah, I actually think the trucking industry, you're in SaaS, I run a SaaS business, could actually learn a lot from the SaaS business. Things like NPS scores, Net Promoter Score actually would be very valuable stat for trucking companies. So did you guys ever dive into that, or around NPS, or?
No, that's a good idea.
New
I like
product
it.
feature coming,
all right, yeah.
There you go.
Stay tuned.
But I think oftentimes if these subscription-based business models, and frankly driver churn is a math. It's the math, the quantitative side of it can actually demonstrate a lot of qualitative issues that you have.
There's a buddy of ours in the industry, Brian Flyclo, down in Houston, Jetco, and he made a point that stuck with me a couple years ago, that the best thing you can do to serve your customers is put the driver first. Because if you've got a reliable, safe, professional driver pool, you can better serve your clients. You know that you can be predictable about, hey, when you tell a client, I can show up, I'm actually going to show up because I didn't lose the driver, he didn't walk out the door right before he's about to take his load.
Yeah.
Investing in safety. The customers don't like it when their loads are on the side of the highway. So these tactics that we're talking about, they kind of say, well, let's put the customer first. Let's focus on sales. He reverses it and says, let's focus on the driver. Let's focus on safety, because that's the best way to have a happier customer.
Yeah, I think Richard Branson actually says, take care of your employees.
Right.
The employee is always right, not the customer. And sort of a reverse psychology, which his theory is that if you take care of the employees and they're proud to work there, they're proud of the brand values, they will take care of the customers.
That's right.
And so, I think oftentimes in trucking, carriers often forget that, but it's not just the carriers that forget that. It's also the freight brokers that extend freight, or shippers are perhaps some of the worst abusers of drivers' time and attention and respect. And we as an industry have to do a better job of educating the importance of the driver population and treating them less like a commodity, more like a really important aspect. And I do applaud the work that you guys are doing, particularly as it relates to the quality of life and improving the quality of life. And hopefully, as you guys develop and continue to develop that narrative around best practices, that will get extended through the industry.
We hope so.
So Scott, thanks for coming on today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Do you know an innovative and disruptive tech company that is changing the freight industry? Or are you that company? Nominations are being accepted now through October 5th for the 2020 Freight Tech 100 Awards. Last year, FreightWaves received more than 500 nominations. The top 25 companies are recognized within the top 100. Winners are chosen by an amazing peer class of industry executives, investors, and academics. Being a member of the FreightWaves Freight Tech 100 and Freight Tech 25 is an amazing marketing and public relations opportunity. Last year's inaugural winners include companies like Tesla, Convoy, JB Hunt, Project 44, and Amazon. 2020 winners will be announced at FreightWaves Live Chicago, November 12th and 13th.